in the bottom of the ninth to lift the Dodgers to a 4-3 win over Minnesota. Shohei Ohtani set a Dodgers record with a home run in 5 straight games. Ohtani hit his 37th in the first inning. The Angels were swept by the Mets in New York. They lost 6-3. The Angels could have swept the 3-game series with a couple of timely hits. They left 27 men on base in the series. The LA Sparks are at the Connecticut Sun tonight. The Sparks are aiming for their first 4-game winning streak in the WNBA since August 19, 2023. Congratulations to tennis legend Venus Williams. The 45-year-old Compton native confirmed her engagement to Andre Preddy, a 37-year-old actor from Denmark. Venus has a second-round match tonight in the D.C. Open against Magdalena Freck of Poland. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. In this, our first hour, we're going to have a subject matter and have a discussion about something that's close to home, something close to every one of us. Dealing with aged parents. The idea that some of us accept our finitude and others of us do not accept our finitude makes the case for the inevitable transition that comes in our lives and how we choose to handle them and how we choose to cope with the idea that we will not be here forever and neither will people that we love and profoundly care for. There are 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, depression, bargaining, and acceptance. And in this particular hour, I'm particularly grateful that a very close and dear friend of mine, Angie Coleman Scott, is the owner and talk show host of The Real Level Up, co-owner of MVP Band Music Productions, LLC, and engineering coordinator at the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, former operations manager at Jam Lamb Records, who recently lost her mother, is willing to share. She's willing to share that which, well, in the recess of so many of our minds, is a process that we are going to have to go through ourselves. My father is now 83 years old with Parkinson's, and every time I look him in his eyes, I say to myself that a process is coming. My mother's in her 80s. A process is coming. And how and when and the reasons why we accept and participate in that process, well, it has tremendous consequences for our personal growth. In this hour, Angie Coleman Scott is my very special guest. Angie, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Jesse, thank you for having me on.
I'm particularly honored that you're here, and I know that you're here under very difficult circumstances. Recently, you lost your mother. Please share with us the kind of woman that she was.
Ooh, wow. I said to myself, I'm going to get through it because, Jesse, as you know, she recently passed only 3 days ago on Tuesday. And the exact time was 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm going to tell you, Jesse, how I know the date. It's amazing that you remember those times in your life that is like, it changes. And I remember, Jesse, where I was when I received the text. And that's how I was able to see the timestamp of when she passed. It is difficult, Jesse, but I'm going to tell you one thing that I am surprised in my own self of how I'm handling it 3 days later. Jesse, you couldn't tell me that I'm going to be on a national show talking about this. There's no way. I have a good friend in Gina. I told her, girl, you're going to have to come down here and pick me up because I don't know what I would do losing my mother. But here I am.
What kind of woman was she like?
Incredible, Jesse. And that's not even a great word to describe her. Let me tell you what has happened in these last 2 weeks as I sat with my mother day in and day out by her bedside. Jesse, what I saw so many people that came into that bedroom where she was in the hospital, one person after another after another. Jesse, it was overwhelming. That's how I can tell what type of person she is. Now, Jesse, she's not a person that's on radio or television, whatever. She was just an average person living her life in Birmingham, Alabama. But the impact, Jesse, overwhelming.
Is it the impact in other lives and the feeling of her connectedness to community that made the burden lighter?
Yes, Jesse. The main thing that is helping me and my 4 sisters, Rhonda, Tracy, Victoria, and myself, is watching the impact that she had on not just us, but the community at large, and watching those faces and getting the testimony of those who are saying, your mother, there's no words. She was an incredible woman.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We are sharing grief, a process that all of us will have to go through in this hour with Angie Coleman Scott, who recently lost her mother, when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZQL Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZQL Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Why'd I go to the doctor? My heart would race just taking my son to practice. It didn't feel right. So I got checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Ron had a tax problem he just couldn't handle on his own.
I owed the IRS taxes for over 5 years, but I didn't have any money to pay the taxes.
Those years cost him dearly.
Most of it was fees and interest. It was horrible.
Ron finally called in the pros.
I called Optima Tax Relief. And boy, am I happy I did.
The leading tax resolution firm, Optima, is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They've resolved over $1 billion for their clients. Ron was overjoyed.
They settled my account with IRS. I was ecstatic. They are a lifesaver. They are. I am so happy.
Take Ron's advice and call Optima now for a free consultation.
Yeah, don't do like I did and wait. Call Optima Tax Relief. Do it now. You'll be ecstatic like me.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. In this hour, a very special hour for me, as we discuss the stages of grief. Angie Coleman Scott recently lost her mother just 72 hours ago, and it's pretty amazing 72 hours later for her to be willing to have a conversation with us about her loss. But in community, Angie is finding strength. Her mother was a teacher, an educator. She was over her school district in Birmingham, Alabama. And she said, in seeing the people that her mother touched and her life served come through the hospital to say goodbye, to spend time with her mother, was a factor in her own ability to handle the grief and the loss associated with her mother's passing. Angie, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Again, Jesse, thank you for having me. Like I said, this is nothing but God right here, because I promise you, I'm amazed that I'm able to talk through with this. But you're right, Jesse. It has to do with her impact on community.
More on the life your mother chose to live, the way in which community has shown its response to that life, and your capacity to cope as a result of the life that she lived.
Well, Jesse, starting back on who she was, she was born in Knoxville, Tennessee, to very humble beginnings. Back then, when you're born and raised in the projects wasn't like the projects as now. I mean, it was a place where you would go, and that's where community started in the project, especially in Knoxville, Tennessee. And so she learned that from, growing up around other people who were like them. And one thing that she learned growing up in the projects of Knoxville, she was taught to always be the best that you can be. But on top of that, Jesse, she was taught to always respect and love others as you're being the best that you can be. Because having that on top of that, it furthered what she wanted to do in life, how of an impact she wanted to have on people. That led her into wanting to become a school teacher. She was she got her education out of the University of Tennessee in Nashville, and from there she went on to get her master's in teaching. What she learned about that was, I just want to be the best that I can be, so that when I'm teaching these students, I have everything that I need to be equipped to teach them what it is to have an education, a solid education. And so the type of teacher that she wasn't the kind that was just going in and teaching them academics. Jesse, what was incredible about my mom, she taught them academics, yes, but she also taught them what it is to be a person here on earth. She taught them life skills. That's the kind of teacher that she was.
You know, I want to comment on that because you said something just a moment ago that reminded me of a quote that my father often uses or used. He said, "You may be born in the slum, but the slum doesn't have to be born in you." You said that your mother was raised in projects in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Knoxville, Tennessee.
And today, when we hear the projects, we think about nothing but negative connotations. And even though the projects were a government construct for critical urban housing and development, the early development of the projects were heralded as a success story. And even the Evans family, on Good Times, which Dr. Yeary reminded us of yesterday, found joy, they found family, they found comfort, they found a condition that economically wasn't satisfactory, but they never gave up on the good times associated of what family meant, of the coming together. I mean, imagine not having family together, even in the projects. Now, the projects became something else. These stacked up housing and urban centers over time, the poverty, the lack of equal high quality schools, they became something else.
Right.
But in that cultural environment, your mother thrived. And her students in her final hours came through to visit her to say thank you for the life that you lived and for touching my life. And you found comfort, as I understand it, some joy, no sense of guilt, no shame, no blame, but gratitude.
Gratitude.
And that gratitude meant something for your coping capacity.
It did. It did. It did. Gratitude is something else, Jesse. Gratitude really in my life is a healer. It has healed me for many, many days. And so as I'm watching these people come in, most people are like, ooh, too many people. Listen, I need time with my mother. All four of us knew that we need to be in position to invite them in so that they can have a little bit more time with my mother. That's the kind of impact that she had. And all four of us know, step out of the way just a little bit so that Johnny, Michael, anybody can come in and get that last word with her, that last FaceTime with her. And that was important. And she did that, Jesse, even going into her latter years. My mom and dad were elders of their church, right? And so they weren't seeking those kind of positions, Jesse. They weren't. My mom and dad was just doing what they were doing. But it was their pastor that said, you know what? You guys don't even realize that you're already acting as elders. May we ask you, please, will you accept this position? They reluctantly accepted that position, Jesse, because they weren't all about titles. They were just about service. They were just doing what they were taught to do. And so, teaching was about service to her. They didn't get paid a lot, especially in Alabama. They didn't get paid a lot, Jesse, but that's why she taught us. It's not about the money, sweetheart. It really is about how you are treating one to another. That's the richness that you will see as you grow older. And Jesse, that's what I saw. That's what I saw. Those people coming in. And I'm telling you, Jesse, that is the biggest lesson. If I didn't learn anything, she kept telling me, Angie, don't run after the money. Be a good steward and character of what God gave you. And watch how God will bless you in his favor. You can't put money on God's favor. You can't. It's impossible.
So let me share with you some of what you're teaching me and sharing with me.
Wow. Okay.
Reverend Al Sharpton
Yeah.
and his daughters,
Okay.
often they come to Chicago to be by my father. And they don't make any public announcements. They don't share the precious pictures that we take. They just pray with Dad. Now, Dad is still mobile and still out here and still public because he needs community. Dad gets up in the morning, goes through his basic hygiene processes with his nurses. But by 8 o'clock at night, he's home.
Okay.
Reverend Sharpton and his family get on a plane. They come and spend private time with Dad. Very inaudible. Sometimes they just cry and they hug and they pray with Dad. And you're teaching me, Reverend Willie Gable and his wife have come to Chicago and spent time with my dad.
Okay.
You're preparing me for a process of people who just want to come by and touch him and hold on to him and watch him blink his eyes sometimes, and sometimes a sentence or two will come out, and I now have to understand, and my family has to understand, and all of us have to understand that there's going to be this process where the lives that he touched matters to thousands of people.
Thousands.
And what you've told me is prepare myself to make room for them, even at this stage of his life. That my failure to make room for them has consequences and implications for my own grieving process. That I have to share this man, I have to share my mother with the world that they helped create. And that's what you essentially did. And 72 hours later, there is a persistence, Lamel McMorris would say, and a resilience. The power to persist is the title of his new book. There is a power that comes from the sharing in community of the spirit energy of people who've touched and helped other people and committed themselves to that process.
We must carry it on, Jesse. And to be honest, you're my brother. You have become a great friend of mine. And I see you doing that already, Jesse. I really do. Our mutual friend, she says the same thing, encouraging me like, you know what, Angie, keep it going. Carry out what she was carrying in her throughout to everyone else. And that's how you can honor her legacy, is you won't be like Winifred Smiley. I'm not looking for that, Jesse. I don't want to be like Winifred Smiley. But what I want to do, I want to be Angie in the way that she shared who she was. It was spirit, Jesse. It was energy. It was that frequency that a lot of people say that, Angie, get on that frequency where she was. And then you'll understand why and how you want to share who you are. And it's all about spirit, Jesse. It comes from God through us to that other person who may be hurting. And these people, Jesse, they're hurting more than we are. That's what I'm saying to my sisters. Hey, y'all, we may have to console others while we're trying to be consoled. But we're consoling others, Jesse. That's what's incredible.
I want to pivot a little bit here because I've been to some funerals with some people that some of us might consider to be the little people.
Come on.
But man, that was a big old funeral.
Yep.
The number of people that the choir director touched, the number of people that Ludella Evans touched, Clay Evans' sister, the number of people that Clay Evans baptized, the number of people that Ferris Evans baptized, the number of people that they touched led to some of the largest motorcades I've ever seen. Then I've seen some pretty big Negroes now. And wasn't no flowers there.
Come on.
And wasn't nobody there. And some of these Negroes are so afraid of their own funerals that they choose cremation and no service whatsoever.
Oh, wow.
But when they walked the earth, man, they raised more Cain than any. You think everybody was coming to say goodbye, and no one came to say goodbye. Or the number of people who came to say goodbye. You know, I should probably have Spencer Leak Jr. on my program to see if I can confirm. He's a funeral director, to see if I can confirm exactly what I just said.
That's good.
That the spirit energy of people who gave back and gave of themselves, who suffered with people, who participated in life's processes, including the give and take, is fundamentally different than the spirit energy of some people who've lived. That's what I think that King meant when he said, you don't have to be a star, the star. Just be the sun. You don't have to be a bush. You don't have to be a tree. Just be a bush. Don't be the best street sweeper you can be. Be the best of whatever it is that you can be and you can serve. Does that make sense, Angie?
It makes a whole lot of sense, Jesse. Let me say this real quick, because I know we got to go to break. The pastor called us yesterday, I want to say. They have a pretty decent sized church, right? Jesse, he called us and said, y'all, we got to find another church. We got to find one that's double the capacity of what we have. Already. From the people that are already asking what time, when can we be there? What can we do? He's like, y'all, we got to find double the capacity of what our church can hold. Jesse, that's humbling.
And it's helping you with your grief process. That the life that your mother lived in community is a factor in your capacity to move forward, because you move forward in the context of the legacy of that greatness.
Boy.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Angie Coleman Scott is sharing with us the grief process on the loss of her mother, who was a teacher and touched many lives. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The White House claims former President Obama tried to sabotage current President Trump after the 2016 election. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says newly declassified documents support the claim and show there was no Trump-Russia collusion.
The Obama administration manufactured politicized intelligence, which was later used as the justification for baseless smears against President Trump.
Obama's office called the accusations outrageous and a weak attempt at distraction. Rapper Glorilla is facing felony drug charges after police found a large amount of marijuana in her Atlanta area home while responding to a burglary. She was later released on a $22,000 bond. And several people were briefly detained during a Wednesday night protest for Jabari Peoples, the 18-year-old fatally shot by police in Homewood, Alabama. Led by Black Lives Matter, demonstrators demanded release of body cam footage. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A very important stretch of the season is coming up for the Dodgers. After losing 11 of their last 15 games, the Dodgers start a 9-game road trip tomorrow in Boston. In spite of the recent slump, the Dodgers are one of 6 teams with at least 60 wins. They lead San Diego by 4.5 in the NL West. Clippers guard Bradley Beal is giving up his number 3 jersey to veteran point guard Chris Paul, who signed with the Clippers last week. Paul has worn number 3 during his entire 20-year career in the NBA. Beal, a 13-year veteran, wore number 3 when he played for Washington and Phoenix. The 40-year-old Paul has indicated he plans to retire after the season. At age 39 last season, Paul started all 82 games with San Antonio. Paul has started 97% of the games he's played in with 7 teams, including New Orleans, the Clippers, Houston, OKC, Golden State, and Phoenix. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey man, hey, what's up? What's the station you listening to? Oh man, you don't know? That's Talk Radio, KBLA 1580 AM. Check it out. 1580 KBLA AM. 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're celebrating our 4th anniversary, and this track right here is the gift one of our devoted listeners presented to us.
Where you get some information, get a true education to know. Ooh, yeah. 1580.
How cool is that? Having a member of our KBLA delegation write us a song. Stop it! Our listeners love us and there ain't nothing we can do about it. Wouldn't want to. Thanks to Cardell and everybody else for turning on KBLA Talk 1580. We love you right black.
Yeah. KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. It's like me. Ooh, KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive. KBLA.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for Black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at KBLA1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My guest in this hour is the owner and radio talk show host at The Real Level Up, co-owner of MVP Band and Music Productions LLC engineering coordinator at the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and the former operations manager at Jam Lamb Records, none other than Angie Coleman Scott. Angie, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Once again, Jesse, thank you for having me.
I want to talk for a moment about grief and passing it on to the next generation, and the way in which we handle grief and passing it on to the next generation. On that question, Angie, I'm raising thoughts about finitude, because every one of us has been through it.
Why?
Every one of us is going to go through it. I don't care if you're rich or if you're poor. I don't care if you're black, if you're white, if you're striped or got polka dots. You're going to go through some grief in your life.
Whew.
And the first phase is obviously denial. There is a next phase, which includes anger. Ask yourself, where are you in this process? Followed by anger is depression. Then there's a bargaining that takes place, a bargaining with yourself. And then there's an acceptance of the things that you cannot change. Angie, can you apply these principles to your process?
Yes, I can. And I'm going to be very straight up and honest with you and your audience. I was in denial when she was in the hospital. Grief had already set in when she was in the hospital. Already set in. I'm going to talk to you about this, Jesse. And you might be going through this as well. My mom had suffered with dementia. And to be honest with you, Jesse, that's when she really died.
Say that again, Angie.
So she really died when that dementia took over. So my sisters and I were already in the grief stage before she took her last breath. And so we were already in denial, and we were already trying to handle that anger while she was still here on this earth, and people were coming in. Check this out, Jesse. We were dealing with our anger and trying to help one another not to go in that depression as she was still here, and people were still coming in. Unreal. We were like, wow, this is hard to even imagine or even share with one another what we are dealing with. We were already there while she was still here. So where we are right now, and I'll speak for myself. Let me stop saying we. I'm in depression right now. And that's why I'm saying to you that only God, Jesse, that I can be here right now and speak. But what I do know is that when you give your life to God, no matter what you're feeling, you know, and this is what she taught us, Jesse, you know that you got to keep going. You got to keep going. It might be a lot of you guys who are listening right now who are either gone through this or have not yet. But Jesse, this generation is being impacted by this right now, because grief is not attached by someone being off this earth. Grief is something that you have lost, or you see that you're about to lose, but you cannot lose any of yourself in all of that. And that's why it's so important, Jesse, like you said, you got to have that community around you. And you got to have, Jesse, really and truly, you got to have that the right kind of people in your outer circle, inner circle. And Jesse, what I've learned to have now is to have that intimate circle. You got to make sure that intimate circle are the right people in there, that they have you, that they have your back, that they know you, and some of them can even finish your sentences, Jesse, while you're going through this grief process.
You know, I do want to say that one of the things that I heard you say, whether consciously or unconsciously, is that the community helped you through the denial and anger phase.
Oh yeah.
Their constant coming helped overcome any questions that may have been in your mind about the impact or the value, if you will, that your mother's life had on other people. But then there's also, when you talk about the depression stage, I can only imagine that there were conversations you wish you had had, or maybe even moments where the things that you expressed or things that you failed to express to your mother that you wish you had expressed. Or if I could have just said, Mama, Daddy, I love you one more time. I just want to thank you for college. I want to thank you for 3 squares a day. I want to thank you for the fight that you put up. I want to thank you for helping me understand and achieve. Thank you for standing by me when I couldn't stand for myself. Mama, thank you for writing me every day while I was in prison, a letter, loving you, thinking of you. Don't forget to pray. I just want to thank you. I should have said it to you before you left.
Come on.
But I don't want to be in that depressed stage. So you pick up the phone, you say it now, you say thank you now, and then you have less resentments and regrets somewhere in this process. But again, community is a factor, and a willingness to talk about it, right, is a factor in how you cope. And then I gather that when you hear testimonials at your mother's services, I can only imagine that you're going to hear stories from people who've never shared them before, but that matter in this process. Now, again, imagine somebody who lived a life who ain't got no stories, no one to help them through this process.
Yep.
And the bitterness associated with, the energy that comes from, not having been the best you can be in community. I can only imagine that there is going to be a bargaining and an acceptance, but there's also going to be a smile on your face at the end of the day, because she left you some energy out here that matters. I feel like, that my dad is leaving me with a lot of goodwill out here. And I feel like I'm the beneficiaries of some prayers my grandmama prayed and my great grandmama prayed. And I ain't prayed enough prayers to offer to nobody, but I'm just living in prayer residual. Talk to me, Angie. Was she a praying woman?
Ooh, yeah. Oh my goodness. Jesse, what? Jesse, guess what? She was praying about you because I knew you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, she really was. She was like,
you mean I'm living in some of her prayers?
Yeah.
I'm getting some energy for some folk who prayed for me that I don't know.
Oh, she was, but that's incredible how she was like that, Jesse. Look, she doesn't even have to know. Look, she was like this. I don't even have to know everybody that's around you, but anybody that you say, Angie, that is a friend of yours, I'm going to pray for them too. I want good for them. Whether I've known them, touched them, it doesn't matter, because that's the incredibleness of God. And because we're talking about community, Jesse, I say this all the time, especially with my best friend over there. We're not put on this earth by ourselves for a reason. We're not.
I think that so much can be said about your story and how much it impacts all of us. And I look forward to diving in our last segment a little deeper. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, Angie Coleman-Scott.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey man, hey, what's up, bro? What's that station you listening to? Oh man, you don't know? That's Talk Radio, KBLA 1580 AM. Check it out. 1580 KBLA, KBLA AM. 1580 Talk Radio, progressive.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're celebrating our 4th anniversary. And this track right here is the gift one of our devoted listeners presented to us.
Where you get some information, get a true education to know. Ooh, yeah. 1580.
How cool is that? Having a member of our KBLA delegation write us a song. Stop it. Our listeners love us and there ain't nothing we can do about it. Wouldn't want to. Thanks to Cardell and everybody else for turning on KBLA Talk 1580. We love you right black.
KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. Can't like me. Oh, KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive. KBLA.
The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. You've been listening to us on KBLA Talk 1580 in this very special hour. Angie Coleman Scott is sharing with us grief. She recently lost her mother in the last 72 hours, and she's shared with us thus far that as the community of people who've come into contact with her life come by to say thank you and express gratitude, that it is helping her through the grief process. Some of us think that the best way to help our families is through estates and laws and trusts and things like that. Those things are necessary. But the human touch at these hours means as much to anyone as any other single thing, because we want to know when we leave here that our lives mattered and that they impacted other lives and that spirit energy matters. In fact, Dr. King, Angie, said on an occasion, he didn't want to be remembered for his Nobel Peace Prize.
Come on.
He didn't want to be known for the great speeches that he had delivered. He didn't want to be known for the great accomplishments that he accomplished in his life. He just wanted to be remembered as someone who helped somebody. Angie, your mother helped.
Ooh, Jesse, like I was saying in the other segment, we had to double the capacity of the church. And that's how Jesse, this their generation, man, I guess They're the baby boomers, right? So the impact that those boomers are leaving, I guess that's your mom, my mom, your mom and dad, my mom and dad. Uh, they are leaving this legacy uh, left and right. And it's up to us to pick up that baton and carry it on, because now, our children now are grown. It's not like we're trying to teach what our parents taught us to little children. They're grown children that can make decisions and make an impact on this earth. And I love how you are honing in on the importance of community. And I think this is where we have gone astray. This What I learned about my mother in community is that you don't have to be kin to me by blood, but I'm still going to take care of you. I'm still going to look out for you. And if I have to, I'm going to admonish you. And I think, Jesse, that's kind of where we went wrong. We're so afraid of correcting one another, even if you're not kin to me or you're not close to me. We no longer, help that young mother that's in the grocery store line that's having a screaming baby, and just, whispering to her, baby, let me give you a little bit that can help you with the screaming baby right here. That generation is leaving us, and I don't want that to be lost. My mother is leaving behind uh, uh, us as children, a slew of grandchildren, but she got an opportunity to see her great grandchildren. She did not want to leave this earth until she saw my grandchild.
I was thinking about a quote from Thomas Paine, and I'm going to take some variations of that quote and apply it to this situation. He said, I prefer peace, but if trouble must come, let it come in my time, so that my children may live in peace. I think Dr. King had a different variation. I prefer peace, but if war must come, let it come in my time, so that my children will know peace. And if difficulty comes, I prefer peace, but if difficulty comes, let it come in my time, so that my children will know peace. There's, of course, a danger to that, right? And that is that we would have struggled through the difficult moments of life to make the world better. And then we give birth to this generation of people who know peace, but they know not war, they know not trouble, they know not difficulty. And so they have to strike the balance between knowing what it took to get here and being able to do something about it, and the sacrifices that were made that they might know peace, if that makes sense.
It does. It
And
does.
I'm particularly proud of you on this occasion. I can't begin to tell you how much you've helped me, and how many people you're helping by your capacity to handle a difficult moment in your life. And when we multiply this moment times hundreds of moments, and then thousands of moments, and then millions of moments, I'm not so sure that all of us know how to process grief, and or whether or not we process grief together. But I do believe, when you touched upon this idea of growing up in the projects, that similar circumstances created by segregation fostered a different community of love, of dealing, of good times, in spite of, in ways that by the time, as Reverend Yeri said yesterday, when we become the Jeffersons and we're moving on up, the same community ain't up there unless we're down here with Fred and Lamont. We over here with the junkyard dogs, and we in the projects. And there's this sense of community. By the time we moving on up and we get some neighbors we don't like, and we hanging out next door to Archie Bunker, and we just run into all these troubles that we've never had before. Angie, we're very proud of you on this occasion. Tell us about your sisters and the people that your mother leaves behind.
Wow. Well, I do want to give out a shout out to somebody else who's very, near and dear to your heart. Her grandson, who is your engineer, Jesse. Wow. First of all, thank you to you and your crew. to giving him an opportunity, because you don't know, Jesse, the impact of having our children to sit and watch, watch all the things you guys are talking about. I see a change in my son. And it really started with him sitting at the feet of my mother, to understand that, you know what, when you are sitting in front of someone who is pouring into you, you sit there, you listen, and you glean from that. And that's how you become better. My sisters, we understand that, Jesse. We understand that to the core. And now what's interesting right now, we're sitting at the feet of each other. Because I'm here in Atlanta and all the rest of them are in Birmingham. And now we have an opportunity to sit amongst, the company of each other and learn from each other as we talk about what mom used to do and say and all that good stuff. So it's incredible. And I want to leave this lasting thing to your listening audience. We made a point, Jesse, that we did not allow my mother to watch the news in her last hours of her life.
Wow.
We didn't do it. You know why? For
Sure.
what? For what, Jesse? All it would have done was break her heart, Jesse. It would have broken her heart. And what she wanted to pour into us in the last hours are good things to go forth with. She would have had all that in her mind and in her heart, and then start to worry. What's going to happen with my grandchildren? What's going to happen with my great-grandchildren? Oh, my goodness, why are they in this world? What's going to happen? She would have done that. And so we cut it off. We wanted to spend hours and moments where it's just us, because where the power is? It's not what's happening on that boob tube, is what I call it sometimes. It's what she's trying to pour into us to let us know that you as one and as a group of you can make a difference in this world. That's why we didn't turn it on.
I am feeling goosebumps right now thinking about that, I am so news obsessed that how do we turn it off? You have to turn it off in order to share and engage in that human moment. And it's not a 24-hour conversation when we're interacting with our family, when we're interacting with our children, when we're trying to pour love into them. It isn't a constant reaction to what some producer or some editorial editor determines we should have in our head. We should not let this world, so many aspects of it, live in our head rent-free.
There you go.
And we're going to and those of you who are engaged in that obsession, you ought to at least make them pay you for the space that they occupy in your head. Angie, thank you for being on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, it will be with the World House and Johnny Mac. Angie, thank you for being on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
You're quite welcome.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The White House claims former President Obama tried to sabotage current President Trump after the 2016 election. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says newly declassified documents support the claim and show there was no Trump-Russia collusion.
The Obama administration manufactured politicized intelligence, which was later used as the justification for baseless smears against President Trump.
Obama's office called the accusations outrageous and a weak attempt at distraction. Rapper Glorilla is facing felony drug charges after police found a large amount of marijuana in her Atlanta area home while responding to a burglary. She was later released on a $22,000 bond. And several people were briefly detained during a Wednesday night protest for Jabari Peoples, the 18-year-old fatally shot by police in Homewood, Alabama. Led by Black Lives Matter, demonstrators demanded release of body cam footage. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. A very important stretch of the season is coming up for the Dodgers. After losing 11 of their last 15 games, the Dodgers start a 9-game road trip tomorrow in Boston. In spite of the recent slump, the Dodgers are one of 6 teams with at least 60 wins. They lead San Diego by 4.5 in the NL West. Clippers guard Bradley Beal has given up his number 3 jersey to veteran point guard Chris Paul, who signed with the Clippers last week. Paul has worn number 3 during his entire 20-year career in the NBA. Beal, a 13-year veteran, wore number 3 when he played for Washington and Phoenix. The 40-year-old Paul has indicated he plans to retire after the season. At age 39 last season, Paul started all 82 games with San Antonio. Paul has started 97% of the games he's played in with 7 teams, including New Orleans, the Clippers, Houston, OKC, Golden State, and Phoenix. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Breaking news. Chuck Mangione dead at age 84. Hulk Hogan on this day dead at age 71. Today and yesterday and for the last few days, we've been remembering the life of all of our brother, Malcolm Jamal Warner, who passed tragically recently in Costa Rica. And of course, the death of Ozzy Osbourne. You know, when I was growing up, my mother would send us down south to spend time with Grandma Tibby and Grandma Ellen. And Grandma Tibby was one of those wonderful old souls and old spirits who, whenever she heard thunder and lightning outside, she would say, "The Lord is at work." So she would turn the TV off, turn the radio off, and we would all gather essentially over in the corner. We're talking 55 years ago, over in the corner, because she wanted us to be quiet while the Lord was doing his work. And so we are in a season where the Lord is doing his work. And in a real sense, when I think about Angie, and before I introduce our host for this hour and the World House conversation that we have with Johnny Mack, in a real sense, television brings relationships into our space that are not personal. And we go through an unnatural grieving process. That is, I didn't know Hulk Hogan. I didn't know Chuck Mangione, but I know their music. I know I know Hulk Hogan's suplexes and work in the ring, and his politics I didn't agree with. And like most of us, I grew up with Malcolm Jamal Warner, like my extended brother. I met him maybe on 1 or 2 occasions, but I didn't know him well enough to have his phone number. But I let them all into my head as factors in the personality that I ultimately developed. And so, yes, we grieve with their families, but these are not necessarily the relationships of the person who lives immediately next to me, to my right or in front of me, or even the person I ride next to on the bus, who I have more contact with than I do men and women who come to me through the television or through the radio. Think about that as we seek to build a world house for our nation and our world, that we have more empathy and or sympathy for people whom we've never met than people we come into contact with every day. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and on these Thursdays, we are very, very fortunate and blessed to have with us Johnny Mack. Johnny is the founding director of the World House Project, well-traveled throughout Americas, Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, explicating Dr. King's call for restructuring the social edifice and its triple evils of poverty, racism, militarism, with a revolution of values that are effected through peaceable power. And I was thinking about Johnny. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, first and foremost.
Thank you, Jesse. It's always good to be here.
Johnny, on this moment, I'm thinking about the grieving process because of our previous guest, but in our home, our world house, our home, there is death. There is death. Death is a factor in something that we have to cope with. And our capacity not only to grieve for people that we know, but our capacity to grieve for people that we've never come into contact with is a factor in our capacity to develop empathy. I mean, I have a few Israeli friends. I have plenty of Jewish friends here in the United States. I have a few Israeli friends. I have a few Palestinian friends here in the United States. But I develop an empathy for people that I don't know in parts of the world when they find themselves warring and fighting. I know probably less than a handful of Ukrainians. And yet I am involved in mankind. I know a handful or less of Russians, but I am involved in mankind. I know a lot of Africans, and what takes place on the continent of Africa does impact me, but I know fewer Africans here in the United States, but I project this knowledge and this connection with people who are suffering, not necessarily on the basis of personal relationships, but because I feel like Dr. King was trying to tell us, Johnny, that somehow we're part of a whole.
Yeah, indeed he was. We are interconnected, inescapably interconnected. And of course, one of his most famous, I think, and remembered quotes is, whatever affects me affects you, paraphrasing. And that's what the World House is all about. We're in this house. There's none other. Certainly won't be another in our lifetimes, Jesse. And we have to figure out how to live together in peace, by the way. King's quote is often recited, we must learn to live together. And very often we leave out those last couple of words, in peace.
In peace. In peace. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our guest in this hour is Johnny Mack. He's a contributor to our program on the World House, where we explore the broader connectivities between people around the world and explore, or try to explore, the revolution and values necessary to bring about a more just world. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, more with Johnny Mack.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
Ron had a tax problem he just couldn't handle on his own.
I owed the IRS taxes for over 5 years, but I didn't have any money to pay the taxes.
Those years cost him dearly.
Most of it was fees and interest. It was horrible.
Ron finally called in the pros.
I called Optima Tax Relief, and boy, am I happy I did.
The leading tax resolution firm, Optima, is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They've resolved over $1 billion for their clients. Ron was overjoyed.
They settled my account with IRS. I was ecstatic. They are a lifesaver. They are. I am so happy.
Take Ron's advice and call Optima now for a free consultation.
Yeah, don't do like I did and wait. Call Optima Tax Relief. Do it now. You'll be ecstatic like me.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZQL Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZQL Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Why'd I go to the doctor? My heart would race just taking my son to practice. It didn't feel right. So I got checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to with Johnny Mack. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Johnny, listen, I was just thinking about the capacity. We got so many problems at home domestically that they're too numerous to actually go through all of them. But Dr. King is asking us to do something else. He's also asking us to look at the world across borders, to look at this across oceans, to look at this concept and the interconnectedness of man in faraway places. He once said, a nation or a civilization, a nation, that's just a country, right? But a civilization that continues to produce soft-minded men and women purchases its own spiritual death on an installment plan. That somehow our interconnectedness is tied to the idea of civilized behavior and living in a civilization itself. Help us, Johnny.
Yeah. So civilization, civilized, what is it? How do we understand it? You know, much of human development, social change, Jesse, and human development might be a term academics use to describe how humanity has evolved over time and created societies and ordered those societies. And that term is essentially what we call civilization. But really, what is civilization? What is a civilized people? You know, civilization is how we decide to order society and how we interact with that order, and that order interacts with us, and we interact with each other. In other words, how do we treat each other, and how do we create a world that treats us? Who does it benefit, and who does it burden? That's what being civilized is all about. And when King talks, I believe, about a civilized order, he's talking exactly about that. The civilization, do the civilizing processes treat each of us and all of us equally, giving us equal opportunities to enjoy the benefits that the society we create offer? Or, as I say, does it benefit some and burden others? And if so, why so? And more important, Jesse, what do we do about it?
Johnny, I do have this question about definition. It seems to me that the very model of what it means to be civilized or civil discourse is largely based on a European model. We don't even consider other models of civilization. To be civilized is what white folks say civilization is. How we relate to the world, America first, which for me, in and of itself, using the English language, is uncivilized. If we are on this global sphere moving through the cosmos at multiple times the speed of sound and traveling around the universe at hundreds of thousands of light years per day, when one looks at the size and the scope within which the galaxy itself is spinning, and we realize that man is not the center of all things, not even the center of this universe. We're not the center of that. Earth is not the center of all things, and it's not even flat. Why is it the Eurocentric model and definition of civilization doesn't even include something as basic as other considerations and other forms of civilization that have not been warring, that have not been so destructive, that have actually looked out for their neighbors?
Well, of course, that's a function, Jesse, of who controls the power structures of society, and who sets the rules, and how are those rules maintained? What gives them durability and sustainability? The answer to that question is largely the bureaucracies, the institutions and organizations that are put in place, and that, of course, has been a process over time. We experienced the slavery period, the colonial period, and now an imperial period and beyond. But people of color generally have not been part of that process, but have been subjects, of course, to that process. And so a certain segment of society, particularly European, Western, Northern Hemisphere, has set the social order and the rules that drive how we interact with each other. And again, who benefits and who burdens. And so that raises the question, how do we change that once again? Are we stuck in this social order? Recall that King says that the social order must change. The edifice that produces beggars must be restructured. The question again is, how do we do that, and who does it?
I stumbled on another quote that I hope invokes some of your thinking by Dr. King. He said, if I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions or even presidential executive orders. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly, somewhere I read of the freedom of speech, somewhere I read of the freedom of the press, somewhere I read of the greatness of America is the right to protest for the right. Dr. King's moral compass, in a real sense, correct me if I'm wrong, Johnny, seems to be redefining the order of civilization in the direction of these individual freedoms.
Yeah, King, I believe, certainly relied on the very pillars and instruments that created the order as we understand it today, particularly in the United States. You recall his dream speech, and he's simply demanding what the Constitution offers all of its citizens. And he's holding the nation accountable to what it says is the true meaning of its creed. King did not live long enough to experience, Jesse, what you and I are experiencing. And I would challenge us to really reflect on what King experienced and what we're experiencing today. And would he really analyze the problem today as he did in his time? Which of us, who of us, and did King anticipate this authoritarian move, not only here in the United States, but you began our conversation speaking globally, this global move away from democracy to something else, to some autocracy, a redefinition of what civilization, of what a civilized society means and is. How did that happen? And why has it happened? It's an important question for ordinary people, those who are listening to this radio, to this podcast now, really needs to consider and understand.
Dr. King said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. But there must be a better distribution of wealth within this country for all of God's children. He didn't shy away from the idea that maybe Marx was right, that certain basic fundamental rights are inherent in our birth as people. He went through a litany of them in the last quote, but absent, of course, the right to a public education of equal high quality, the right to health care of equal high quality. For what does it matter to be free when you get sick if you're not entitled to the same level of health and care that other Americans, by virtue of their birth, by virtue of their worth, are seemingly entitled to in a democracy? We're not talking about aristocracy or oligarchy or even authoritarianism. We are talking about a system where high quality healthcare at the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic is available for people around the world who fly here on Learjets and very private planes, get top billing at these hospitals, and people who live right there in Rochester, Minnesota, people who live right there in Cleveland, Ohio, don't have access to the same quality of care in their own nation. And Dr. King seems to me, Johnny, to be saying, I don't care what you call it. Call it something basic that people are entitled to, provided.
Yeah. So what we call it is not as important for King as the values that undergird it, right? Which is why he calls for a revolution of values, because he understands that the values that undergird or support become the pillars of our system: poverty, racism, and militarism, or cupidity and or greed, that is, rivalry and bigotry. These values are what create the opportunity for the few to dominate the many. And we call that democracy. We call that liberty. What's wrong with that logic? How is it that we have a logic that allows the accumulation of all of our efforts into the hands of a very small, minuscule number of people, while the majority toils day in and day out, not being dramatic? What is wrong with this civilizing process, this civilization that we've created? And again, how do we change it? We are relying on others to do what I think King has called us to do, and that's to determine the type of society we want, and to demand that society Not only to demand it, Jesse, but to work for it, to take the action to realize it.
You know, Johnny, I don't know how we do that without a supreme example. Now, I'm not talking about a supreme leader. I'm not talking about an Ayatollah. I'm not talking about President for life, Kim Jong-un. I'm not talking about dictator for life, Vladimir Putin. I'm talking about, given what we talked about in the last episode, the last hour, a recognition of our finitude, which means the value system to which I believe Dr. King is articulating and you are expounding is a value system that is, one, linear in that it is passed on and the expectations of the people themselves have a high source of consistent moral leadership that teaches the people by the way in which it conducts itself and the way in which it behaves. And that the spirit energy flows from the very top of the system itself in a form of an unprecedented, unrecognized moral authority, not military authority, not financial or fiscal authority, but moral authority, where the human conscience itself becomes the vehicle by which we make judgments and discernment in the realm of our individual freedoms. Does that make sense, Johnny?
It makes sense to me. You're talking about authority and morality. Authority, ultimately, we talked about this, I think, in our last episode, Jesse. Authority ultimately has to reside in the people. People are what gives a society its moral bearings. And if the people refuse to carry out their role or are somehow precluded from carrying out their role and abandon that role for others, then King is saying that we've got to find a way to reorder the structure so that the people's deliberating, deciding, and acting, by the way, his definition of freedom, can take place. And the people have to deliberate, the people have to decide, and the people have to act on the type of society they want.
So does that, I've only got just a few seconds, so I'm going to wind this up. But when we do come forward, Johnny, I want to ask you the question, is that from some book? Is that idea from the Bible, from the Quran, from the Torah? Is that from some law? Or is this a free-for-all where we, the people in a democracy, get to establish certain moral codes that are in some kind of ethical relativism that aren't based in anything that's grounded, and any philosopher can show up and give us a new moral code? I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Listen to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward more with Johnny Mack.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Hotel workers in New York City are celebrating the new Safe Hotels Act, which sets stricter safety and licensing standards.
And our hotels must be clean, safe, and dignified for tourists and workers alike. This legislation will help make sure that it is the case.
Black Mayor Eric Adams joined the Hotel and Gaming Trades Council to mark the law, now in effect. Critics say it could raise costs for travelers. Sean Kingston's mother, Janice Turner, has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for wire fraud. She and Kingston were convicted of using his fame to scam over $1 million in luxury goods. Kingston will be sentenced next month. Black Maryland lawmaker Angela Also Brooks and others are urging President Trump to reconsider his denial of disaster aid for flood-damaged Allegheny and Garrett counties. They say May's flash floods caused severe damage and meet the threshold for federal help. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support. at Crohn'sColidusFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A very important stretch of the season is coming up for the Dodgers. After losing 11 of their last 15 games, the Dodgers start a 9-game road trip tomorrow in Boston. In spite of the recent slump, the Dodgers are one of 6 teams with at least 60 wins. They lead San Diego by 4.5 in the NL West. Clippers guard Bradley Beal is giving up his number 3 jersey to veteran point guard Chris Paul, who signed with the Clippers last week. Paul has worn number 3 during his entire 20-year career in the NBA. Beal, a 13-year veteran, wore number 3 when he played for Washington and Phoenix. The 40-year-old Paul has indicated he plans to retire after the season. At age 39 last season, Paul started all 82 games with San Antonio. Paul has started 97% of the games he's played in with 7 teams, including New Orleans, the Clippers, Houston, OKC, Golden State, and Phoenix. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at KBLA1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest on this Thursday is Dr. Johnny Mack. Johnny Mack, founding director of the World House Project, well-traveled throughout Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, especially the Americas, explicating Dr. King's call to restructure the social edifice and its triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism with a revolution of values that are effected through peaceable power. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Johnny, I want to say this because I think that an argument can be made that so much of our civilization might have to be torn down for the reflection necessary to give birth to the kind of society that Dr. King was talking about. That constantly propping this thing up requires a burning. And I think Dr. King once used the quote that I feel like I've encouraged my people to integrate into a burning house, into a burning world. And I'm wondering if all of our efforts to put the fire out might be exacerbated by the present political era that we find ourselves in. Johnny?
Well, the present political period we're living in really challenges us, I think, Jesse, in ways that we just have not been challenged before. We've reinterpreted it. We're in the middle of reinterpreting the very Constitution upon which we find ourselves today. That is the mores and norms that we accepted, particularly through the mid-20th century, are radically being changed to a new world order. So it's not as if at some point this system has to be torn down, to use the term I think that you've used. It's in the process of being torn down as we speak. It's in the process of being restructured, Jesse, as we speak. When King says we need a revolution of values in order to change the social edifice, there is a revolution of values taking place as we speak. The value of authoritarianism is one. And so the very revolution of values and this new world order that King called for and the restructuring of the social edifice, Jesse Jackson, is taking place. The problem is we are not making that change. The people he called upon to reorder the social edifice, the people he called upon to infuse a certain set of values are not the players on the stage of this restructuring of our social systems.
So let me ask you that question then, Johnny. Let me push back a little bit because I learn as much from you just listening, from your infinite wisdom, but I also learn from the pushback, right? So okay, let's say we weren't being torn down or burned down by those who are doing the tearing down and the burning down, which is not my recommendation, but maybe happening. But who and or what would have been the alternative? Dr. King is gone. Many of our battle-weary and ready soldiers are gone in the struggle for social justice. Whose value system are we talking about? In this moment, I'm saying to myself that we don't live under the Declaration of Independence with its lofty ideals of all men and women being created equal. We live under this republic over here where one half of the country believes that its constitutional values are exactly what they're doing. And then there are our constitutional values, largely interpreted by Thurgood Marshall and now by Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sotomayor, which is an America that seems to be fleeting. But then on the other hand, let's say that their ideal America came forward. What does that look like? Are there alternative executive orders that bring forward the social edifice and the challenges to the three triple evils that Dr. King talked about in that World House vision? Or are we talking about a void and a blank space that needs to be filled by some radical dreamers and some radical idealists who believe in practical reality?
Well, I think that the idea that it's an individual, or even a group of individuals, who should determine or would determine what our social order should be, how our society should be organized, and who should benefit and who should burden, would not be consistent with King's point of view. But rather, he, like Gandhi, would say that that responsibility is all of ours. We all have the responsibility to play a part. And I don't think he would argue that that happens solely at the ballot box. We talked about this a bit in one of our past episodes. Voting is important, for sure. And we must vote. Our votes must be informed activities. We should understand what we're voting for, who we're voting for, and why we're voting as we vote. And that's just one example. But that leads to a much broader discussion, I think, Jesse, in two respects. One has to do with the structures themselves that we as ordinary citizens can play a role in, rather than looking to the political and the economic. The civic has a certain structural framework. And then the second is the values themselves. As we've argued before, those values are up to us. It's up to every citizen. The question is, as you asked, whose values, what values?
You know, Johnny, let me just add, if I might, that Senator Raphael Warnock is obviously in the tradition of Martin Luther King Jr. He's the pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church, certainly the new edifice in Atlanta, Georgia. And he says that a vote is a kind of prayer that we offer, that we cast for the kind of world that we want to build. And he seems to have connected the vote to more than just an act of exercise or an act of joining a local gym and something we throw out there, but to your point about the thoughtfulness of all that is represented requires a consciousness on the two votes you and I are going to cast when we cast them. I have no doubt in my mind that when Johnny Mack steps into a polling place, it's going to be a thoughtful one vote. And I have no idea that there's absolutely no chance that in my mind, when I cast my vote, is not going to be thoughtful. So there's two votes, but I don't know if everyone has given much thought to the idea that, well, I need to put some kind of divine energy behind my knowledge of what this is that I'm casting in the context of this framework.
Yeah. So, there's so much in what you just said, and particularly Senator Warnock's notion that a vote is a prayer. We can take that in many, many directions. A prayer is, in many respects, a hope that someone somewhere can do something about those things that ail me. And so a prayer is, a hope for something that will happen. But this notion of casting a vote is something that happens at a moment in time. A vote is not something that happens as a process over time. And so while we must vote in time, we must also prepare ourselves to vote as a process over time. The problem is our social structures don't lend themselves to that exercise in our quotidian lives, in our day-to-day living. We're so busy with the media sound bites and distractions, whether it's an ad or a silly show.
It ain't going to get no heavier than that. KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, more with Johnny Mack.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
See website for details. Bills Happen is not a lender and does not make credit decisions. Hey, bills happen. So when you need extra cash fast, go to billshappen.com. Have you been turned down? Are your credit cards maxed out? Do you have bad credit? Go to billshappen.com. All you need is a job and a checking account. You can find a lender and get up to $5,000 cash as early as tomorrow at billshappen.com. Billshappen.com is the smart way to get a personal lender now. So if you need extra money for car repairs, medical bills, family emergencies, whatever you need cash for, go to billshappen.com and you can get the money you need as soon as the next day, up to $5,000. At billshappen.com, our process is safe, secure, and all online. No one to deal with in person, and Bills Happen does not charge you any fees to use our service. It's easy. When you need a lender, just remember, when bills happen, go to billshappen.com. Billshappen.com for the cash you need now. Billshappen.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out 5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Looking forward to your show on KBLA Talk 1580. In this final segment of our show, none other than Johnny Mack. Johnny is the founding director of the World House Project. He's an extraordinary thinker, a very reflective person, and I'm so grateful that every Thursday he's decided to share with us. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
I always appreciate the invitation, Jesse. Thank you.
Johnny, it's your show. Hey, let me ask you this question. I think in this final segment, I always ask our guest to offer a final word of hope. And it's quite possible, Johnny, that the entire week that our executive producer has structured the show, it comes down to everything that you discuss. When we start Mondays, when we go through Tuesdays, when we get to Wealthy Wednesdays, we end up at the World House at the end of the week. And then, of course, our executive producer comes on Friday and we reflect upon the week that culminated in the Johnny Mack Show. And I'm wondering, Johnny, when we talk about this World House, not in the abstract, but what it really, really looks like if Johnny Mack articulating Dr. King's vision had some kind of capacity or power to envision a world that there would be peace, that we could live together, that the idea of selfishness has its place maybe in a system, some form of system that encourages innovation. I think Dr. King understood the significance of that. But that the overwhelming idea of civilization was part of a Christian ethic of caring for our neighbor and looking out for people who cannot look out for themselves, regardless of their race, regardless of their sex, regardless of whether they're urban, suburban, rural, whether they are an agricultural worker or an agricultural community, or whether they are a suburban village. It seems to me that this vision is beyond the very structures which stretches our imagination to something we have not seen. Johnny, what does that imagination look like?
That's a very big question, Jesse. I certainly don't pretend to know exactly the vision that King had. We recall his mountaintop speech, and he looked over and he's got a glimpse of the promised land. He never described in that speech what he saw. But he gave us, I think, in his short 13-year campaign, you know, Jesse, he laid the stones, the stepping stones, in so many ways. I refer you, for example, to his treatise, his article, his speech called The Ethical Demands of Integration. And there, King describes what an integrated society would look like. He's not describing the picture itself, but what he's describing, Jesse, are the values which would be employed in creating that picture of what we might call, and he called, the beloved community, which is, in my view, a metaphor for the world house. In that article, King talks about three basic ideas that as three basic values of dignity and freedom or liberty. And the third is community. You know, when we talk about a revolution of values, and you ask the question, whose values, who would argue against all humans have an equal measure of dignity and worth? Some do argue against that, for sure. But rational, right-minded people would generally accept that all humanity, irrespective of any characteristic we ascribe, ought to have some measure of equal dignity and worth. And then the second is liberty. And these are interconnected values, Jesse. If I have dignity, I ought to have the liberty to exercise that dignity, the freedom, the opportunity. So this is the second fundamental value that paints the picture of the world that King, I think, is envisioning. And then the third simple value that everyone, it seems to me, would not object to, all things being equal, rational, thoughtful people, people of goodwill, is community. If I have equal dignity between you and me, and we both have the liberty to exercise that community, that dignity, then we live in community. And I must, in that community, allow you the space, the liberty, and the exercise of your dignity, while you, in community with me, offer the same.
I don't think that could be better stated. I mean, I would agree with every single thought and the direction of the thoughts and the spirit within which you've articulated those thoughts entirely. I would only argue that we seem to have normalized our system and its values, which is largely based upon how we behave as functionaries in an economic system, that all of us are aiming for retirement. Everybody wants a certain level of comfort and material stability, satisfaction, that our values are largely driven by not the world that you just articulated, but by, you know, I'm retreating to my castle, to my space, to that which I've earned, to that which I own, to the end of the news program, or now increasingly, when I was growing up, you know, sometime after the weather, they talked about the economy. I can't quite remember when the news began with how the Dow Jones average starts. It has moved up in the news to, it's before the trauma of the day, what the Dow Jones Industrial Average is doing. In fact, my Happiness or sadness in this system is tied to the performance of Standard & Poor's, Dow Jones, the industrial average, the Nikkei, and other markets around the world. What happened in Japan last night or in the European exchanges the night before is a factor in my American happiness. That's not what it was meant to be, Johnny.
Yeah, Jesse. We've said before that human beings act in accordance with the truth as they perceive it to be, right? We should never forget that. And so what forms that perception? The very things you're talking about, Jesse. The media, what we consume, what served up to us in what we consume through social media, through cable networks. Just think about the content. Think about our educational system and how we're from the cradle to the grave almost, whether it's formal education or lifelong learning. We are socialized into accepting this notion of atomism, of individualism. I must get mine and you must get yours. And if you don't get yours, it's your problem, right? Rather than this idea of community, that we both can get ours, right? Both can realize our potential. It doesn't have to be an all against all world, as Hobbes argued, but rather it can be an all for all world, which King argues.
And so did the Three Musketeers.
Yes. All for one
and one for all.
It's that simple, isn't it, Jesse?
I think it is. We have to.
It can be that simple.
Yeah, I am, Johnny, amazed at the thought that you've given to this over the decades of your life, and I make room in the World House for our joy. I make room for our sadness. I make room for new life. I make room in the World House for death. I make room in the World House in my own mind for nurturing the love of parents who care. I make room in the World House for some good times, some moving on up, some sad times, some depression, some exhilaration, some anxiety, some uncertainties. But at the end of the day, we're all family.
Yeah.
I make room for that in my thinking. And Johnny, I can't thank you enough for being on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, for your weekly contribution and ongoing contributions, because it is so important for us to give some thought to who our neighbor is. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest has been none other than Dr. Johnny Mack. Until tomorrow.